What if Planet Labs is sitting at the beginning of something much bigger than just another satellite stock? Right now, PL is trading around the $20 area. And that brings us to the big question. Can Planet Labs reach 20? Can it push to 30? Or could PL eventually reach $50? Because here's the interesting part. The numbers coming out of Planet Labs are getting harder to ignore. But there's also a major risk that could completely change this story. And we're going to get to that part in just a minute. So let's break this down. Planet Labs is not your typical space company. The company isn't simply trying to launch rockets into space. Instead, Planet operates a huge satellite fleet designed to capture images and data of Earth. And that data can be incredibly valuable. Think about governments tracking military activity. Think about agriculture companies monitoring crops. Think about insurance companies analyzing disasters. Think about companies tracking infrastructure, ships, forests, and even environmental changes. And now Planet is pushing deeper into artificial intelligence and higher resolution satellite imagery. That is where I think the story gets really interesting. Because if Planet can turn all of this satellite data into actionable intelligence, the company could potentially become much more than an Earth imaging business. It could become an intelligence platform. And that's the first reason I think investors are paying attention. But before we talk about $30 or $50, let's talk about what the company is actually doing right now. Planet's latest quarterly results were strong. The company reported record quarterly revenue of about $94 million. That's up roughly 42% year over year. Even more interesting is the company's remaining performance obligations and backlog. Planet reported more than $906 million in backlog. That's up around 72% year over year. And its remaining performance obligations climbed to about $816 million. To me, this is one of the most important parts of the entire story. Because revenue is what Planet has already earned. Backlog gives us a look at business that has already been contracted but hasn't necessarily been recognized as revenue yet. And when that backlog is growing faster than the business itself, that's something investors should watch very closely. But here's where the story takes a twist. Strong growth doesn't automatically mean the stock is cheap. And that's the problem. At around $20 a share, Planet Labs is already valued at several $billion. So the market is expecting a lot from this company. If Planet continues delivering 30-40% plus growth, investors may be willing to pay a premium. But if growth slows down dramatically, that premium could disappear very quickly. And that's why I don't think the question is simply, can PL reach 50? The real question is, what has to happen for PL to deserve $50? And I think there are three major things. Number one, revenue growth needs to remain strong. Planet is guiding for fiscal 2027 revenue of roughly $425 million to $441 million. That's a meaningful increase from the previous year. If Planet can continue growing beyond that level while expanding its customer base, the market could start viewing PL very differently. Number two, Planet needs to improve profitability. This is something I would personally watch very closely because high growth is exciting. But eventually, the business has to turn that growth into real profits and cash flow. Planet has already demonstrated improving financial strength, but the company is still investing heavily in satellites, technology, and expansion. That's why I wouldn't expect a straight line higher. There could be plenty of volatility along the way. And number three, government and defense contracts could become a much bigger part of the story. This is where Planet's technology gets especially interesting. Governments increasingly want persistent information about what's happening around the world, and satellites can provide something traditional intelligence methods can't always provide: a global view. Planet has already been winning contracts and expanding relationships in government and defense. If that trend continues, the company's revenue visibility could become much stronger. And that brings us to the big question, can PL hit 20? Well, at the current price, we're basically already there. So I don't consider $20 the real target. For me, the first important level is 30. And honestly, I think $30 is achievable if Planet continues executing. That's roughly a 50% move from the current area. But I wouldn't expect it to happen overnight. It could take several quarters of strong revenue growth, improving margins, new contracts, and continued investor interest in space and AI. Now let's talk about $50. This is where things get much more interesting. Could PL reach 50? Yes, but I think investors need to understand that $50 is not my base case. It's my bullish case. For Planet Labs to reach $50 and stay there, I would want to see several things happen together. Strong revenue growth, expanding backlog, better margins, improving cash generation, more government and defense contracts, And perhaps most importantly, the market needs to believe Planet can build a much larger business than it has today. If those pieces come together, $50 suddenly doesn't look completely crazy. But here's the twist. There is another scenario investors need to consider. What if Planet's growth slows? What if satellite costs rise? What if government contracts get delayed? What if the company continues investing heavily but profitability takes longer than expected? In that scenario, PL could easily trade below $20 again. And that's why I wouldn't personally treat PL as a guaranteed moonshot. This is still a high-growth, high-volatility stock. So here's my personal price outlook. My bearish scenario, I'd put PL somewhere around $12 to $18. If growth slows significantly and investors become more concerned about valuation and profitability, my base case, I could see Planet moving toward roughly $28 to $35. If the company continues delivering strong growth and improving its financial profile. And my bullish case, $45 to $50 becomes possible if Planet significantly expands its government and commercial business, maintains strong growth, and the market continues rewarding AI and space-related companies with higher valuations. But here's where I personally stand. If you ask me today, would I call $50 my realistic target? No. I'd say $30 is the more realistic milestone to watch first. Then if Planet proves it can execute, $40 becomes much more interesting. And after that, $50 becomes a serious bullish target. And honestly, I think that's the mistake a lot of investors make. They jump directly from $20 to $50. I would rather watch the business prove itself one step at a time. 20, then 30, then $40, then maybe $50. That's a much healthier way to look at a growth stock. But now I want to hear from you. Where do you think Planet Labs is going? Can PL reach $30 first? Or do you think $50 is actually possible? And here's the question I'm really curious about. Would you personally buy PL around $20? Or would you wait for a pullback? Drop your price target in the comments. If you think PL can reach $50, write $50 below. And if you think I'm being too bullish, tell me why. Remember, this isn't financial advice. I'm simply sharing my personal analysis and the scenarios I'm watching. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you subscribe because we're going to keep tracking Planet Labs as the story develops. Because right now, PL isn't just a story about satellites. It's a story about data. It's a story about AI. It's a story about defense. And potentially, it's a story about a company that could become much bigger than the market expects. The question is, will Planet Labs actually deliver? We'll see.